out with Dave and Nicholas. I'm so excited to have you join us in this great episode and great time out to share Kingdom Light. I am Nicholas, and I believe that by the grace of God, you are here live and direct with us. And I have a guest in the studio this lovely evening, that will be sharing thoughts on scriptures and that will help us. I would like to welcome him, and I want him to introduce himself to us.
All right. Welcome every one of you, wherever you are watching from any part of the world, whatever time it is, anywhere you are watching from. My name is Dave, and you are welcome to this live broadcast, and God bless you.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. Today we'll be looking at the dangers of spiritual slumber. The danger of spiritual slumber. You know, we are in a time where the whole world is in confusion, and there's a lot of government legislation that has hampered the coming together of believers. So today we'll be looking at that very quickly, and I trust God that it will bless you. Quickly, my guest in the studio, what does it mean when we talk about spiritual slumber? What is actually spiritual slumber?
All right, spiritual slumber, when you are talking about spiritual slumber in the first place, I would like to look at it from this perspective, that it is a time, spiritual slumber is a time and a season when the consciousness of self and the consciousness of things in a territory for an individual is more than the consciousness of God. It could be the same for a territory, for a country, wherever it is. Another way to look at spiritual slumber is when men are given to, like the Bible said in the book of Timothy, lovers of themselves more than lovers of God. It is a sign of spiritual slumber. So this, when we put it together, spiritual slumber is a time and a season when we become more conscious of ourselves, conscious of things, more than being conscious of God.
Okay, it shows that when a believer is diverted into being conscious of other things apart from God, and the believer is less concerned with spiritual matters and spirituality. Okay, that's lovely. I also was thinking that it has to do with a time where there's a failure in taking spiritual responsibilities.
Yes, exactly. I think we have a reference of that in Isaiah 56. You read verse 10, you read verse 11. The Bible said their watchmen are blind. They love to sleep, lie down and sleep. So those are also signs. Those are the kind of things we refer to as spiritual slumber. That's one of the instances we can take from the scripture.
All right, that's fantastic. It shows that spiritual slumber actually focuses the attention of the believer from God.
From God, yes.
To other things.
Exactly.
And that's a very dangerous point.
It's very dangerous.
For a believer, because at that point you lose touch with God. At that point you are not in communion. You are shut out. All right. Exactly. Okay. Now, how do we? Spiritual slumber is not an automatic event in the life of a believer.
No.
So what brings about spiritual slumber? Are there things that causes spiritual slumber? So what brings about them?
Yeah. What brings about spiritual slumber most of the time is, like I said earlier, pleasure. When you become more conscious of self, more conscious of things. Yes. You become relaxed, and therefore you are given to pleasure. Your laziness for the things of God becomes the resultant effect of those kind of things, so that men are given to themselves more than anything God. As the mention of the name of God is like
they are not comfortable.
They are not comfortable. Okay. And those are the reasons why the name of God, the worship and prayers in public place become a shameful thing. It is a sign of spiritual slumber, and it happens in our institutions all over the world, as you can see this day. These are signs. These are indicators of spiritual slumber.
Okay, so we are saying pleasure.
Pleasure
is a major cause of spiritual slumber.
Pleasure.
Are there other things?
Carelessness.
Okay.
Even in the time of crisis, like the Bible said in Matthew 26. Bible says also that because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold.
That's right.
So in the time of crisis, there is a tendency for spiritual bondage, for spiritual slumber for a lot of persons.
We can now narrow it that in this season of pandemic where public worship has been restricted,
it leads to a lot of laziness.
Are we now saying that it's a form of way to set in spiritual slumbers to some believers who have been on a shaky ground
before now? Exactly. Most of the time, for the fact that there is no worship anymore, some persons, some believers become relaxed, and most of the cases, some of these believers are immature. They need to be encouraged every now and then. Like the Bible says, the time that you are supposed to be teachers, you will still have the need to be fed with meal. And so in that kind of time, this kind of time, pandemic period like this, people are given to laziness and spiritual slumber as well.
All right, that is very, very interesting, Mr. Dave. If you're out there and you notice that you are more conscious of pleasure, you love pleasure more than the things of God, it shows that you are already sleeping.
You are the danger point and you need to run back quickly.
All right. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Because of our time, we'd like to forge ahead very quickly. And since we have known what brings about spiritual slumber, some persons are still confused. They don't know whether they are sleeping spiritually or they are active. So how do we identify spiritual slumber as a believer? Like you cross-examine yourself and you want to know actually if you are still awake or you are sleeping. So how does a believer get to know that? How does he identify spiritual slumber?
Now, individually, if you want to cross-examine yourself individually and you want to be realistic with yourself, you have to sit down, ask yourself, how is your prayer life now compared to previous weeks?
Okay, that is, you have to score yourself.
You have to score yourself practically. You don't need anybody to do that for you. Now, do you pray more? Do you study the Word of God more? What is your consciousness of God? What is your closeness, your intimacy with God in this time compared to other periods?
All right.
Then you'll be able to score yourself if you are slumbering or you are still awake.
Wow. So it shows that if you are doing less now,
if you are doing less,
that means you are sleeping gradually.
You are on a sleepy ground, and it's a danger point.
Wow. That's interesting. So viewers out there, I trust that you can understand the implication of this. If before this period you were on fire for God and your morale about the things of God, like study, prayer, and fasting, is very high, and this time around you cannot keep up with the duration that you had earlier. It shows that you are sleeping already, and there's a need for you to awake. And sometimes these things are very deceptive. People
highly
don't
deceptive.
know that they are sleeping spiritually. So how do you encourage believers out there who feel they are comfortable and they think they are still with God while they are sleeping?
It is a very dangerous assumption. It's a costly assumption to assume that you are still intact when you are on a sleepy ground already. And I want to encourage every believer now that you should study more. You should pray more. That is what
add to what you're doing.
Add
Go
to
beyond
what
you're doing.
You have been doing before. Now your understanding of the things of God should be more.
Wow.
So that when you yourself, you will know. When you begin to go deeper into the things of God, you yourself, you know, you don't need a spirit. You don't need any preacher to tell you that.
All right, because of that, we would have loved to push this very, very points so wide. But because we have limited time, we have to forge ahead. And I believe that the Lord is helping you to get this message. All right, the next thing we'll look at very quickly, sir, is the dangers. of spiritual slumber, which is the core of this matter. What are those dangers that